It's got to be better here in 19 for Florida State. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, running down the Seminoles position by position. The linebacker position is front and center here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, as we talk Florida State with Jason Parker from Chop Chat. Of course, we encourage you to help us build the channel. So if you love what we do each and every day in delivering the best in discussion, debate, and analysis of college football, again, across the board, Power 5, everybody, then grab the Amazon link in the description section below. Do your regular shopping right there. The linebacker position at a place like Florida State, much like you could go to any position on the field, maybe not the offensive line in recent years, but all time, modern football, and you're like, okay, they've produced freaks. The great position traditionally dropped off in recent years. You do have your top two tacklers back from that spot. One moved from safety, but the linebackers do typically get the most of the tackles. So that says a whole lot. How do you set up the linebacker position for us?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a position that went from guys like Marvin Jones, Derek Brooks back during the dynasty era of the 90s, to a guy who you look at the roster now, you have Dontavius Jackson, who's clearly the leader of that unit and will be as the senior. And then after that, you kind of have a little bit of a drop-off. And I think that's one area where, as much as we talk about on the offensive side of the ball with the running back spot, that's an area at linebacker where you have DeCallum Brooks, Derek Brooks' son, who showed up somewhat as a freshman last season. You have Amari Gaynor, Tallahassee kid. His father played at FSU. What's he going to do this year? I'm, looking down Jaleel McRae from New Smyrna Beach. You have all these guys. Emmett Rice from Miami. He's going to be a junior as far as that group. Josh Brown, senior from up in the Charlotte area. So you have guys who have the ability. You have guys. A lot of these guys came in as 3-star, 4-star recruits. But other than Dontavius Jackson, it's a concern I have on the defensive side of the ball. You know what you have at the line spot. You know what you have in the secondary. You don't really know, because other than Jackson, no one has really showed up to be at least a number 2 linebacker. It's going to be a lot of committee guys. It's going to be a lot of Dontavius Jackson and then a lot of other guys rotating in. So that's going to be the question is how will that fit with the defensive scheme, number one, and how will Jackson play with those guys, knowing that he doesn't have a consistent, real first-team defense at this point? Could that change by Boise State? Absolutely. But as of this point right now, it's going to be a lot of Dontavius Jackson and then a lot of just fill it in.
So Brooks is a legacy guy, huh?
He is. That's Derek Brooks' son. He had some decent moments last year. And then you have Amari Gaynor, who's from Tallahassee. His dad played wide receiver, Herb Gaynor, back in the 80s for FSU. So there are decent guys. There are guys who wanted to be Seminoles. These are guys who did want to play for Florida State, wanted to wear the spear on the side of their helmet.
And when you look at Brooks in particular, he was a contributor, 46 tackles, 3 tackles for loss. As we mentioned, Dontavius Jackson leading the group with 74 stops, 7.5 tackles for loss, and contribution from Marvin Wilson at 4 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and 41 tackles. So they've got guys that have been on the field during meaningful minutes, and they're just not an elite group. This is probably a pretty safe comment that it's not going to be an elite group, but at least you have productivity coming back that you know something about, but not a whole lot of depth in regards to, again, proven players. So the linebacker position, a bit in flux and not up to Florida State's standards.
Now, I will say this, and I agree with you, everything you just said right there. I will say this one thing. You mentioned about the tacklers. The guy you mentioned, Jaden Lars Woodby, was the stud safety, played in the secondary last year. He'll be seen a lot of time both in the secondary and at the linebacker spot. He'll just be kind of for lack of a term, roving that unit right there. If he can play up to what he did last year and show that physicality he showed, because you just YouTube some highlights. Obviously when you're done watching us, don't YouTube it right now, but later on, make sure you YouTube him. And he was delivering hits as an 18-year-old freshman. Did the offseason help him? In the spring, he looked pretty good. both rotating, both playing in the secondary and moving up a little bit. If he can show that physicality early on in games against, physical teams like Boise State, like NC State, like Virginia, that could be interesting. Does he bulk up and play more of a linebacker role, or does he stay at his current size and be more of that secondary kind of rover position?